Hello and welcome to the Emma Childers podcast, Embracing the Dash, a collection of stories, art, and encouragement, and creative ways for embracing the dash. Thanks for tuning in. Let's embrace the dash. Good afternoon. Today I have a special guest with me, the Reverend Dr. Eli Morris of Hope Church. I'm so glad that you can join us today, Eli.
It's a great joy. Anytime I'm able to be with you, it's a good one.
Well, thank you. Well, you know our exciting journey. You've been a part of it for a while. And so today I'm going to ask you to share some ideas and some things that you've done, to be a part of this journey that
Sure.
I've been on. Now, for some of our guests, some of the viewers do not know you and are not familiar with the Justice Tour. And you've been leading that tour for about 31 years, right?
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Justice Tour, what that's all about?
Sure. It evolved out of another experience we had at the church that we started in 1991 called the Urban Plunge. And in the Urban Plunge, we take a number of our members into the city. We spend 3 nights in the city and we see the sites around our city and ministries around our city that are involved in the urban communities. We have a panel on racism that's always a pretty powerful moment. We worship in an inner city church on Sunday, and that's the weekend. And those folks that went on that, 2 or 3 years of that, they were wanting something else, another experience like that. And I'm an old American history teacher. I taught American history for a little bit in high school. And I was always intrigued by the Civil Rights Movement. And as a Memphian, we were very close to it in many ways. There was a lot of activism here in the city, and then, of course, the tragedy of Dr. King's assassination here. And so I thought it would be a good idea maybe to hit the road on this deal, and let's do what we decided to call the Justice Tour. And so the first 2 or 3 years we did it, we just took a van. We rented a van, and I would drive it, and we would head down to Montgomery and spend the night there. We'd see some civil rights sites there in Montgomery, which is a wonderful city for that. Then we'd go to Selma, and then we'd go to Birmingham. And so the first number of years, it was a van trip. And then when it grew, we were able to get buses to go. And so we eventually got larger buses, and now we do a bus every year for that journey. We leave early on a Friday morning and come back on a Sunday evening.
So who goes on that tour? Are they members of Hope, or are other people in the community join you for that?
Most are members or regular attenders at Hope. We've kind of promoted it internally rather than externally. And so we offer it as an opportunity for our Hope people to unpack this whole idea of justice through the lens of the Civil Rights Movement. And so it's been historically Hope people, although there's always 2 or 3 other folks that have kind of tagged along with us.
And so about how many people have gone on the tour?
Man, that's a great question. I mean, this past year we had about 30 folks go on it, and typically it's been about 15 to 20, and this last year was 30, and we hope to do that again this coming year.
So what was it that made you decide to make it a 2-day tour, and what particular things are involved in that 2-day tour?
We needed to start on a Friday. We needed to start on a Friday so that we could go to some of these sites that were not going to be open on the weekends. And so we get up early. We leave Hope about 6 a.m. on Friday morning, and we drive. We grab lunch on the way, and then we end up in Montgomery, where we have historically gone to Dexter Avenue Church, where Dr. King's the only pastorate he really served. And we'd go to Dexter, then we'd go to his parsonage, which is just a few blocks away. And we would walk through the home, the parsonage where he and Coretta and their first 2 children were born there. And that's always a really powerful deal. For many years, we went to the Rosa Parks Museum, which is a museum that's associated with Troy State University. And it's a great place. Mm-hmm. But a few years ago, Brian Stevenson, who is an attorney is a civil rights attorney and a precious man, he opened two new museums there, if you will. One is this lynching memorial, which is an outdoor memorial to those who have been lynched in our country. And it is a very somber experience and very powerful. And then he had another museum that he called the Legacy Museum. And the Legacy Museum traces the African-American experience from slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration. So it's that sort of look at the Black experience in the United States, which is tragic on many levels. And he's done a beautiful job of that. This whole lynching thing has really taken a real energy in America as we reflect upon that in the horrific way that we would. Mm-hmm. In fact, in the Legacy Museum, there's this wall that is just filled with jars, clear, large jars, mm-hmm. and in that is dirt. And it doesn't make much sense. It's all different colored dirt. And as you go to them, you see a name that's attached to it. Mm-hmm. And what they've done is they've gone to this lynching site where this person was lynched. Mm-hmm. And they have put dirt in it from that spot to honor and commemorate that human being, thinking there may be DNA in that very dirt where this person took their last breath. And so that's part of that museum. He has got a new movement there called the Equal Justice Institute that is also something that's pretty interesting there. So that's what we do. That's what we do in Montgomery. We get back to the hotel and we have a little debrief and talk about, okay, what did you see today? What did you hear today? What did you feel today? And that's always been a real great way to kind of end the day. The next morning we get up early and because we're going to bus to Selma. And so that's an 80-mile or so trip from Montgomery where we go to Selma and we go to a voting rights museum there. And the Voting Rights Museum, it's not like the nice museum like the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis or the Civil Rights Institute in Birmingham. It's a little bit of a mom and pop sort of feel to it. Mm-hmm. But the guy that gives us the tour, his name is Sam, and Sam was a child during the Selma March and so on, and went to jail a couple of times as a kid because the young people were leaving school for voting rights marches. And he does such a beautiful job of walking us through that experience there. And then we get back on the bus and we cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge into Selma. Mm-hmm. And we go to Brown's Chapel, which is where the marchers congregated before the march. And he talks about that neighborhood. There's a house, pretty sprawling for Selma anyway, pretty sprawling housing development down there that has a great history because when the first march was turned back by the troopers, mm-hmm. and John Lewis, Hosea Williams, who were leading that march, they came back to the church to kind of clean up their wounds and to pull their lives back together. And then Dr. King is brought into the picture. They began another march that they stopped because he was waiting for the federal approval by the judge to have the march to Montgomery. Mm-hmm. And then they begin calling all Americans who are interested and are sympathetic toward this cause to come. Mm-hmm. And there were many people that came, mm-hmm. some who tragically lost their lives there. Yes. But there were actors, Harry Belafonte came, Joan Baez came, other people came that were going to make this walk. Mm-hmm. Well, this thing lasted longer than they were having to wait for this federal approval. Right. And it took a while. People in that neighborhood allowed people to come stay with them in their little housing development. Took care of them, fed them, and that's always a sweet time. And then we get back in the bus and we take the bus back to the bridge, and we walk across the bridge, and that's a very powerful moment, and for everyone. And to have the feeling that those marchers must have had on that day to cross that river, and to understand that these troopers on horseback are coming towards you, and you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, whether you're going to be thrown over the bridge, it was horrible. And that's always a great trip.
It probably makes a big impact on the people who are.
Well, it does. It does. It's something that is very visceral. You know, you're seeing photographs or statues of these events, but it's another thing entirely to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Edmund Pettus being a Klansman, Confederate general, you know, and they're talking about changing the name of the bridge. And there's some thought that John Lewis's name should be on that bridge. But there's also some thought in regard to historians that think that it might be best to keep that name so that people understand the context of the time. And maybe they'll do a combination of both. I'm not sure. We drive from there to Birmingham, and generally we go to Kelly Ingram Park immediately and go through the park. And that park is where most of the demonstrations took place. It's where you see the dogs that were let loose on the crowd. You see the hoses where people were hosed, children, men, women, and children. Right across from the Edmund Pettus, not the Edmund Pettus, but the Kelly Ingram Park, is the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. It's very reminiscent of the Memphis National Civil Rights Museum, but it is Birmingham specific, and it's a great museum. And we try to go there if we get there in time. And right there's three things right on top of each other. There's the Kelly Ingram Park. There's the Civil Rights Institute, and then on the other corner is 16th Street Baptist Church, where little girls were killed. And that is a sacred little piece of land for a lot of people. Again, we go back to the hotel where we debrief again before we go to bed. The next morning we get up and we go to 16th Street Baptist Church and we worship there, which again is another real powerful moment for a lot of people when they realize what really transpired there. It really changed the course of the movement in many ways. The evil of it drove people to the good of it. And you know, the powerful thing about this for me is I was just a kid when this was happening, but I vividly remember it because it was on the news every night. It was the lead for the news most of the time. Vietnam War was not in its full bloom at that point in the early 60s, but the civil rights movement was, and so we would watch and any. I don't know where you might be coming from at that time, but when you see the brutality of it all, and you see these children being hosed by these fire hoses and these dogs being let go on people that were just marching, there's something wrong about that, and it really galvanized the movement and gave it a voice that it had not had previously, I don't think, nationally. So, and then once we're done there at 16th Street, we head back, and we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So you get to meet a lot of the people who are on the tour, and
we do, and that to me, I mean, it's great going to these sites. The real benefit of it is the conversation in the bus, around the dinner table, in the lobby of the hotel, wherever it might be, because that's really when people process things and unpack things, is in those informal sort of settings. And so, you know, I used to bring a box of books as references so that you could look at these different books to get some context about the things that we were looking at. And now because we can all Google these events.
Right.
It's a very easy thing. And I'll tell you another thing we did starting a number of years ago. The first few years, we didn't have the capacity to do it because we were in vans and so on, and buses that weren't equipped. But we bring movies, and we watch movies on the way down and on the way back, which are movies about the events we're getting ready to go see.
Wow.
There's a Spike Lee movie called Four Little Girls that was a documentary about the girls that were killed. There's a movie on Vernon Johns, who was the pastor at Dexter preceding Dr. King. And James Earl Jones plays Vernon Johns in this movie. I think it's called The Vernon Johns Story. And it is really a great, great movie, especially for people that are getting ready to walk into that church. Eyes on the Prize, which is a set of it's a documentary about civil rights movement. We watched the movie Selma that Oprah put together, and so therefore, you're learning all the time. It's not just when you go to the site.
Right. It's much of an immersion.
It is an immersive experience.
So tell me what it was like when you got a chance to meet Jack.
Jack's a unique soul. He was a humble, brilliant man. I know some brilliant people, and they let you know it. Jack was not like that. His brilliance was there, but he was not haughty about it. He was very inquisitive. He was very gentle, but he was piercing in his inquisitive nature, and so. You'd sit down and speak with him, and you're speaking with most folk at this level, and he would start there, and then he'd go here, and he would try to mine, if you will, whatever issue we might be talking about. He was a delight. He was a delight, and he was also great with the folks that were there. He was great with all the people that were with us.
So I'm sure that he did not mention that he was working on this project.
He did not.
That would just perfect. So, and you learned about this project after Jack's death. And so what drew you into the project? Because I really came to you and Pastor Rufus at the very same time and brought this information to you and said, I've got this project that Jack has worked on, and here it is. And I gave you a small presentation about it. But then I asked you to actually read it.
Right.
And so what
Number one, when you told me, I was surprised that was there. It's such a unique collection of thoughts as well as items. I was surprised by it, and I was very intrigued by it. I was intrigued for a number of reasons. I was intrigued on the historical level as an old history teacher and a history buff, and especially at that time frame. There's no more interesting time frame in my lifetime than that time. And so I was really intrigued about the layers of it. And then, the James Earl Ray thing is always been intriguing to me. Exactly who was this dude exactly? And I've read a bunch of books about him and about the tragedy of the event. And I was just hungry to find out more. And so it's really interesting. On one of our justice tours, we had a lady that had been on a couple of them, and we were at a particular place, and then began talking about the assassination. With great certainty, this person was presenting with great certainty that there was a conspiracy to it, and almost flippantly saying, there's no way this man did it by himself. And I noticed my friend, and she is really upset, really troubled by it. And I went to her and I said, "What? You okay?" She said, "Not really." And I said, what is the deal? And I had forgotten her husband was an FBI agent, and he was assigned that particular case. And his understanding and his firm belief to his grave, I did his funeral, was that James Earl Ray acted alone. I don't know. We'll probably never know what fully happened there. But we know we lost a great leader. No matter if it was one person or if it was a group of people that made that happen. But to see, the artwork from the trial, and to see all those things, and to see his work, his artwork, was fascinating to me. Almost a little, not scary, but unsettling to see art by this man. Anyway.
Right. Now, you have been the chaplain, right, for the FBI. You were that. I don't know if you still are.
I still am.
You still are, but you've been the chaplain for a number of years, right? And you've read a lot about the whole, this assassination, a lot of books about it. So what sets this book, I know you said a few things, but in your mind, because of your capacity as the chaplain, what really sets this apart from all the things that you've read?
I really think that's a great question. I think that there was a sterile nature to much of the work that I've read that did not speak to the humanity really of James Earl Ray, and this opened up another little part of him that was fascinating to me. Not to bring honor to him or bring glory to him, but it was an element that I had not seen, and that's what was so fascinating to me about it, and all the surrounding characters that interfaced with him and with the experience was fascinating too. Just names of people that we all know.
Right. Exactly. So is there one particular thing that stands out to you that you would say to others that have made up their minds or think they know everything about what happened during and after the assassination? What would you say?
I have this insatiable curiosity about events like that. I've read everything about Kennedy. That's another person. I've got friends, and I'm this way too. I've not done it as extensively as others, about Lincoln, who love to watch the documentaries, to read the books, to visit the sites of whether it be Lincoln or Kennedy or whoever it might be. And I think that this study of that event, and particularly James Earl Ray, is incomplete without this work.
Yeah.
This brings. I'm gonna, and you know what? I'm gonna read the next thing that comes out about it. It's not just that. Okay, this does not satisfy my insatiable interest in this project, but this is a piece of my puzzle for it, and that's important to me.
And at times, I believe that at times when we're looking for information, it really just puts us on a quest, to find something else and to go a little deeper, not only for that information about that particular time in history, but it also helps us look a little bit deeper in ourselves as well, and search within ourselves. So.
It's funny, a friend of mine told me to watch this particular documentary about a marathon, and it's, I forget the name of it, but it's at Brushy Mountain, where James Earl Ray was locked up, and they run through the woods back there. And so one of the reasons I was intrigued about watching this marathon was because I knew that was where he had been incarcerated. Yeah.
Well, Eli, thank you so much for your time today and for your insight. I think that many times we look at an event in life, and someone else writes a story or does a perspective about it, and we all have our already, our ideas about what the truth is, what we believe the truth is.
Right.
But every bit of information that is offered brings us to another level. Now, I might be a little bit biased, just a tiny bit biased, but the thing that I realize that as I continue to work on this to move it toward getting it published is I have read a number of things about the Dr. King's assassination. But I haven't really read anything that brings these three words together: justice, forgiveness, and reconciliation. And I haven't read it or heard it from a biblical perspective.
Right.
We're all about, you just preached on justice
Right.
and mercy, this previous week, and we talk about that. But most of us talk about it from a perspective of, our worldview, but not from the view of what does God say about justice, forgiveness, and reconciliation. So that's...
Well, and the civil rights movement was a church movement.
Exactly.
And so anytime you look at any of these issues, these experiences, these tragedies even, it grew out of the church.
Exactly.
And so therefore there's a spiritual nature to every element of it.
Well, the thing that almost always gets missed is about who Dr. Martin Luther King, was. He was a man of God. And
many of his leaders.
Yes. And so we forget about that platform. We look mostly at the violence and the other things that occur. But if you look at his actions, and if you listen to his words, that violence is not a part of his not a part of his dialogue at all.
No, he was avoiding it at every place.
Everything. So again,
Thank
you so much,
Eli,
for being here. So thank you so much for your encouragement and for your support.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Let's embrace the dash.